You're listening to Truth on Tap with host Kevin Kierstead.
Can you feel it, my friends? It's the big show. I can feel it. Yeah.
Some say that karma is a bitch.
Well, let's hope so.
Some say that karma is a bitch.
I'll bet old people hope karma is a bitch.
Okay, so last week I had
This is my friend that stayed in a haunted hotel. She lived. Whereas an old person may have had a grand mal seizure. You don't know. Might not have made it. It's the big show. You're listening to Truth on Tap. Your host, Kevin Kierstead. You can't call in yet, but we will get that fixed. You can come to the chat room at Spreaker.com. It's like speaker, but with an R after the P. Spreaker.com/user/Truth on Tap. Kind of a pain in the ass right now on the logistics side, but that's life, and life keeps going with or without your approval. What is it about aging? And that's something I wanted to talk about tonight. I was trying to think of a show topic because, and I'm very honest about everything, so I'm going to go over a few things here for those of you that may just be tuning in to the first episode or first few episodes. This is a one-man operation. I don't operate out of a real studio. I have no longing to be famous. However, I have beaten the normal fears of public speaking. That I'm very happy about. Not sure I ever really had a fear, just the unnecessary worry. There is going to be music on most of my broadcast from the local band Bad Ace. I have moved from, I'm just going down the list here, I have moved over from Blog Talk Radio to Spreaker because the audio quality of the broadcast is much higher, but there is missing that ability to call in by phone. So that's something, I say I'm working on it, but really I'm just reading and I'm not getting very far. So I've been asking questions in forums and I'm waiting for answers and that kind of thing. Because I'd like to be able to take your live calls over the phone, especially if this show gets a little bigger. It's growing pretty quickly. I was surprised to see when I checked my stats last, but anyway, that's it. I mean, that's the summation. What the show does is focus on truth, capital T, in most categories, but especially in politics. When people are telling you lies, I try to jump on those and get those corrected right away. Just like the fact-finding sites do, but without any slants. And I'm not saying all of them have a slant, but some do. You know that. So even they need to be kept in check. And it takes individuals like you and me to do that. Can you trust a Glenn Beck with all the money he's getting to push this or that? Can you trust a Rush Limbaugh? Can you trust a Keith Olbermann? Can you trust a Rachel Maddow? And that's just going left and right. We haven't even started talking about libertarians or, any of the more Green Party thinking people. How do you know you're getting truth from anybody? Well, for me, I'm going to speak, one, with the voice of reason, and two, I'm going to give you some data to back up things that are said, as well as references. And after you listen to some of my broadcasts, you'll realize that there's just no bullshit with this guy. He's really trying to bring the facts as clean as he can bring them. But until then, I understand your skepticism. Can't blame me a bit. I have skepticism on myself, much less other people. It's a natural thing for the curious mind. It's rather healthy to be a, quote, healthy skeptic, unquote. Some people are not healthy skeptics. Listen to my episode on Dr. Michael Shermer if you'd like an example. Here it is, we're 4 minutes in, and I haven't talked about getting old yet. We got to do this. Aging, how does it change? Now, we'll talk a little bit about what it does to the human body, and we'll get there. But more of the focus that I had in my mind when I came up with the concept of this particular episode a few hours ago was how people's thinking changes. And most of that is not related to physical breakdown of cells. Most of that is related to your experience, I think, and I think that's been proven. And I'll give you references. I've got some sites up here that we're just going to touch on a few things they say. You have your Wikipedia, which I like Wikipedia because it comes from a lot of sources. And I realize they're not heavily monitored for accuracy, but they do give references, so you can check out your references. And then I've got something up here from the National Sleep Foundation talking about aging and sleep. And finally, for tonight, I have the Discovery Fit and Health page up on How Stuff Works, which talks about the aging process. And it goes down a list of anatomical effects, cardiovascular, gastronomical, immunological, and metabolic effects. We're not getting into all that. That sounds kind of boring, doesn't it? Sounds more like a medical show. Yeah, we're going to avoid that. We're just going to talk about how people change. A little bit about the physical side, but mostly about how thinking changes, how behavior changes. That's my specialty. That's what I like to get into. One of the things I love about being older is the natural digression of focus on one's own nerves and those things that used to make you nervous becoming somehow less important. Now, the paranoid person, as they near death, even if they're just getting 1 year closer and they're still far out, they will start worrying about that kind of thing. But I think the average person knows we've got a limited ticket to this show, and time is ever running out, isn't it? Tick, tick, tick. And maybe it's a little scary when you get right to the end, and maybe it's a little scary when you think about the fact that you're going to have to leave all the people you know and love. And maybe it's a little scary that they have to go through your belongings when you're gone, and some of the things they may learn about you. I can understand that. But for the most part, I think the average human looks at life and death equally, as in, they're going to happen, whether you approve or not. People and creatures will live, and those same people and creatures will die. And nobody has to approve it. It's just going to happen. There is a way to destroy us all, so it's not guaranteed to happen. We can stop it. We can go thermonuclear, zap it all, and make life stop on this planet. Let's hope that never happens. So what is it about getting older that makes you worry less about those things that used to worry you all the time? You know what it's like. I think the 20s are probably the hardest decade. You're not old enough to have any respect from anybody yet. You're not old enough to have any real depth of intelligence. You might have some book smarts, but not any depth of intelligence, not the kind that experience brings. What you've got, you've seen in the classroom pretty much. So there you are, not being respected by the world yet. Yet, you're launched out of home, expected to go make a living on what will invariably be a low salary. You go to college, and you think you know it all when you go to college, and you still lack those things that experience teaches you. And there's no shortcut to get them. There really isn't, because there is a process involved in experience. You got to go through it. 1. 2, you've got to digest it, apply your current thoughts and belief systems to the experience. That's 2. 3, you got to let it bake. You got to let it cook. See what it means to you. Give it time. Give time for other things that have happened to you or new things that you're learning to both be indoctrinated into and questioned from that perspective that you had during that experience. In other words, the experience itself can change. It can take on a life of its own, even though it happened and is over. How about that? A lot of that comes down to perspective. That's one thing I like about getting older. There's a couple of other things, and there's some things I hate too. Continuing on with the things I like about getting older, you may not like this if you find it true. I do. I like the death of naivete. I like being closer to absolute truth if one chooses to keep their mind open enough to start getting up there on that scale. Because if you start closing your mind on ideas, you're never going to get close to truth. If you've got it all figured out, I'm not talking to you. You've got it all figured out. I'm talking to people with open minds that realize ideas and discoveries change things, and we need to be constantly open. As I look at time passing in that respect, I see it as a song playing. It's an art. I feel it happening. Time is one of the biggest mysteries in the universe to me, one I'm the most interested in from a scientific viewpoint, and time passing is art. It's a process, it's a feeling, it's a metamorphosis. The very act of it happening is beautiful to me. So maybe that lends into why I like getting older as well. Change is something that people expect to see. When things don't change, they stand out. When things change, they are the norm. It's kind of what you expect. Go to your old neighborhood. Go to the neighborhood you lived in when you were 5 years old. How does it look now? Does it look the same? That'd be odd, wouldn't it? Chances are it doesn't look the same. Guarantee the people don't. And I guarantee the people that live there aren't the same. So that's one part about getting older that I like. I like the change. I like the experience of the change. And I like the lack of worry that tends to creep in. You know, you have new worries. I'm worried about my kids, you know, my stepdaughter-to-be and my daughter, and even nieces and nephews, other kids that I'm close to, that I wasn't worried about before. You know, just not something that's on your mind. But that's really about it. You know, you stop doing this thing like you do in your 20s where you're always worried, how do I look? How do I sound? What do the people at work think about me? Do my friends think I'm cool enough? When I go out to the clubs, do I look good enough? I gotta buy this product and that product and the other product because my face has to look right, my hair has to look right, the smell has to be right, the music has to sound right. You can go through 100 different items of what people are trying to do to look good in public and to sound good. How freaking ridiculous is that when you really apply it to what human life is? Forget what people think about you. For God's sakes, I know you've heard that 100 times, but how about doing it? How about doing it? If I could have spoken to my 15 or 20-year-old self, I would have said, one way or another, I don't care if you have to lock yourself up in a room for an hour every night, I want you to talk yourself out of caring what other people think about you, as far as styles go or looks or anything. Now, when it comes to manners, respect, common courtesy, and behavior, yeah, care what people think about that. I think that's a worthy concern. But not about anything else. Not about anything that is your preference or opinion and does not affect other people. Screw what they think, to hell with them. That's one great thing about getting older. You start to lose that concern. I hate my voice. I do. I don't even like talking. You're going, well, how the hell do you have a talk radio show then? And I'm glad you asked. I have a talk radio show because I like sharing and getting involved with the community. I can only do that in a limited capacity, and I'm going to go over a specific example of that in just a few minutes. I don't like talking, yet I feel that of all of the forms of media, talk radio is the best. Because you don't have a visual. You've got to imagine. I love it, engaging the imagination. You still have the voice, so you can tell when someone's feeling uneasy. You can tell when they're probably not being truthful. You've got all that working for you. And the bonus is that you get to use your imagination as well. So that's working for you. People, you're not distracted by visuals as you would be on TV or somebody's broadcasting on YouTube. So I like this medium. I really do. I don't like talking. Most of the time, if you're around me, I'm not going to be saying anything because I'm more of a listener. But this is a fun way to engage and feel like I'm, I don't know, getting some ideas out there to be pondered. I mean, maybe the average person isn't interested in that. Maybe they think I'd do better at going to serve at a soup kitchen. I'd make it about 20 minutes serving in a soup kitchen, and then I'd fall over out of intense pain that I could no longer handle. That's how the nature of my medical problems are. It's severe arthritis in the low spine. I'll give you an example. My legs are killing me today, my hamstrings, and I've only had sore hamstrings a few times in life that I can remember, back in high school football mostly, and a couple times after that. And I'm sitting here wondering why. Well, 2 days ago, a local festival called Market Days, I decided to try to go and sell some of my, I like to make paracord bracelets and sell them. I'm always trying to do something to keep mattering, something to create and bring in some money and be involved. You know, I'm not the kind that, although I may be withdrawn somewhat socially and prefer privacy and alone time, I like to be involved. I like to be involved in matter in some ways, just like anybody else, I think. Uh, and I think what's coming with age is that I don't actually need that so much. I just have an inherent desire to want to share whatever I can with people if it might help them. That's really what it comes down to. Do I think I have a revolutionary new talk radio show that's going to change the world? Hell no. I'm just another guy. But I'm a guy, I'm a thread in that fabric that you call the public, who is pretty damn good at listening, who is very good at paying attention to details in reporting, and who can help you make sense of a pretty chaotic world without encouraging you to go the route of the conspiracy theorist and just apply a crazy label to everything that makes it understandable. It's not all understandable. Let's just have a working understanding of things. That's what I'm trying to bring to the show with this. So I'm walking around the other day. I'm trying to sell some bracelets, and I start feeling the pain. I'm about 15 minutes in. I'm actually talking to some Coast Guard auxiliary gentlemen about military service. They were talking about their service. I was talking about when I was in the Air Force. And they were older gentlemen. They were, I would say, in their 60s or 70s. God, I hope I'm not wrong about that if they're listening, because they're going to kill me. And they were talking about, well, we go out on the water and we may notice a ship disaster. And I asked, can you do drug busts and things of that nature? And they said, no, we can call in the real authorities for that. But we can. They don't know we don't have guns, so we can certainly pester them. He said, but we lack the youth that someone like you might have to do the big things when it comes to the heavy lifting. And I said, well, let me tell you something. There's a misconception right there, because youth means nothing. And I told them about my disability. I got a bum knee. I got a medium scale arthritis in my right knee and high scale heavy duty arthritis in my lumbar spine. No position is comfortable for more than 10 minutes. Standing vertical or sitting vertical can last for about 20 minutes. If it lasts longer than that, I pay for it for what comes into the terms of not hours but days, and then days into weeks. So walking around this festival trying to sell these bracelets, I do it for about an hour and a half. And I know I'm going to pay. My God, do I know. Because I'm feeling it. I'm feeling the vibration of the bones rubbing together. It's getting to that level. But I was wondering why do my hamstrings hurt? Yeah, I got home and actually went out ghost hunting the same night, knowing that I was going to pay for that as well. And what that means is I'm done for a week. I can't go do anything for a week, even though I want to. I like to go ride my scooter. Can't do it. Can't even go out. It's just pain, intense pain, and that's something I hate about getting older. But I couldn't understand why my hamstrings hurt. And then I realized, I used to be a huge gym buff. From about, 2001-ish to about 2008, I guess, till my doctor said, you probably need to stop doing that because you're killing yourself and your low spine, even though you think you're helping yourself. And he advised going on a light workout regimen. Well, I didn't. I just quit the whole thing about 6 months later when I figured he was right, at least about doing damage. And so I haven't done real working out since like 2009. And that includes basic exercise, walking a mile or two. So walking around this festival that I was at for an hour and a half was like running a marathon to an average person that's somewhat healthy. And now I'm paying for that. So so the spine's killing me, the right knee's killing me, and now the hamstrings are begging for some attention. And I'm going, holy cow, am I that out of shape? That's kind of a concern as you get older. I think it's just realizing that you're not Superman. You may have been when you were 17, but you're not now. Connective tissue starts to degrade in strength. Muscles, unattended, begin to atrophy and lose power. Bones become more porous and lose tensile strength. This is part of it. This is part of what happens when a thing goes from new to old. And from the moment you're born, you're on a path toward dying. Now, science may come along and invent some sort of injectable that will extend life indefinitely. And I believe that eternal life is actually possible through science. I firmly believe that. Because what they've found already in our relatively primitive research and science is that cells of the living are programmed on when to die. Anything that's programmed can be changed. You change the programming. Cells can be told not to die. The products of some cells that protect other cells can continue to be manufactured if the code is changed. You know, one of these sites talks about, we need to get into these because I haven't even talked about them, we only got 10 minutes left. One of these sites I was reading about talks about the myelin sheath, I believe, of the axons. Now this is stuff you normally wouldn't be interested in, but it's kind of my thing. The neuron in the brain has an axon. If you look at it, it's funny. It's kind of shaped like a sperm. Think of a sperm cell. And you got the little bubble, little tail. Yeah, that's kind of how a neuron looks. Except the neuron has these little things called dendrites. They're kind of little feelers up by the head that stick out. It has these little cutouts called synaptic clefts, and they receive chemical signals essentially. When you hear things like uptake and reuptake inhibitor, that's what they're talking about, controlling transmission of neurotransmitters, essentially things in the synaptic cleft coming off of the dendrites and traveling up and down the axon of the nerve. It is, I believe, calcium and potassium that pushes the electric signal down a neuron. So when you begin to deplete any of these things, you begin to lose effect in the neurons. The sheath around the neuron acts like, I guess the best way to describe it is it acts like electrical tape. It keeps one neuron from screwing up another by laying wires across it. That sheath breaks down over time, that myelin sheath. And this is just one specific example of what happens that it begins to cost you in older age or with disabilities that do the same thing. Calcium depravity would naturally lend to the problems if calcium and potassium are used as signal generators and signal amplifiers / motivators in the brain along the path of a neuron, and you're losing one, the other, or both of those overall in your body, you're going to start having thinking problems. You're going to start having chemical problems with memory and cognitive process. It's going to start becoming a challenge. You know, you might see a very elderly person look like they're thinking about algebra, and they're trying to remember somebody's name, because it's that much work for them. Memory takes a hit. Sleep takes a hit. I believe that sleep, and my doctor kind of got me believing this, and he had to preach to me a lot to get me to start looking at it from his angle. Because he thinks that, for one thing, my old doctor, this is my old pain doctor at the VA, he thinks that the answer to everything... Thomas, I got a cat on the back porch that loves to terrify me. He'll wait till I get calm and forget he's out here, and then he'll smack something off the shelf. Thomas, I'm going to kick your ass. Don't do that again. You scare a brother. It's not necessary out here. I'm trying to have some peace. He's looking at me like I owe him money. That's alright. Where were we? I don't know. Anyway, the aging process. So we're talking about aging and sleep. Now, sleep is a central part of a healthy life. It is absolutely necessary that you get good sleep if you want to be healthy. The shit that comes off of a bad night's sleep is the kind of domino effect you don't want to see in your life. You know, you've seen it happen one day, maybe 2 days. Or if you're like me and you never sleep, you've seen some pretty widespread effects of not getting enough sleep. But it is so important to the repair process of your body and mind that going without it, it's just like not putting oil in a car that's actually burning oil. You're just headed toward a quicker downfall. Everything's aging in an accelerated fashion if you don't get the repair time in. Very important to get good sleep. Do what you have to do, man. There's so many things that affect sleep, from sleep apnea to snoring. I mean, these are all things that can be treated. Some other things. This is kind of a big deal. It's becoming big, I should say. Restless leg syndrome is anything. I have these things. I didn't even know there was a frickin' condition for it. It's called it's somewhere on here. It's called PLMD, periodic limb movement disorder. Now, I don't have to explain that to you. I think the title's pretty self-representative of the definition. Periodic limb movement disorder. That means involuntary movements when you're sleeping. Have you done it? They're saying that 45% of all older people have at least a mild form of it. I do. You'll think I'm getting electrocuted sometimes in my sleep. Everything's moving. You go, what the hell was that all about? I used to fall asleep. I would terrify my roommates. I'd have 4 or 5 roommates up in Northern Virginia just a few years back. And I would be so tired because I never slept at night that I'd get home, we'd be watching TV, and I'd fall asleep on the couch. And I would do my electrocution dance, I call it. And it would terrify them because you're sitting there. You're sitting there and you're watching the news. Some dude starts scrambling like an egg in the middle of your living room. Yeah, it terrified them, and it terrified me. You know, I'd come out of the sleep thinking they did something to me. So I don't laugh much, so I'm not good at it, but I have to do it sometimes, so bear with me. You know, these are things. Now, if you do the electrocution dance in your sleep and you've got somebody sleeping beside you, they can have a full-out heart attack. You're on the phone with 911. What happened? I had the electrocution dance. They weren't ready for it. Yeah, they're not going to make it. I'm doing the CPR. You do an electrocution dance around me when I'm sleeping, it'll get all kinds of crazy. See, I do things like jump up, take a drawer out of the bureau, go put it in the fridge, grab some ice, throw it outside, and I come running in and sing the national anthem. Because I don't know what's going on. If I don't know what's going on, I don't know what to do. I didn't like basic training in the Air Force. I didn't like how they came in beating on pans and pots and singing reveille. What do? I'd march in place. I don't know. Should I be on top of my footlocker? Let me get on top of it. Yes, I realize my pants are on my head, but nobody told me that's not what I'm supposed to do yet. This is how I feel when I wake up. I'm very confused. I don't know who I am or where I am. So, you know, your sleep problems can lend to the sleep problems of others as well. That's something else to consider. There was one other thing, and I was telling you about the write-up on Wikipedia. There's some good stuff from the Mayo Clinic about aging, but it's kind of boring to me. Sounds very clinical, so I'm just going to avoid that. I would advise you read it, though, if you're concerned about what you can expect. In fact, the Mayo Clinic's article it's called Aging, What to Expect. Wonder what's considered a normal part of the aging process. Here's what to expect as you get older and what to do about it. And then they go down the list. The cardiovascular, the bones, joints, and the muscles. The digestive system, and you get constipated. The bladder and the urinary tract. Your memory. And then they go on to show some other related links, articles that they have written that also talk about not necessarily aging directly, but long-term care, older drivers, memory loss, ginkgo biloba, is it any good, denture care, that kind of thing. So it's worth looking into if you're really worried about aging. But I was more concerned with how aging affects one psychologically, and that's what I wanted to talk about tonight. You know, I've run us straight out of time. I got to play Bad Ace here, so let me go ahead and load up a song from them. And you can hear a show at a minimum every Friday night at 11 p.m., but maybe, just maybe, you'll hear them more frequently because I tend to jump on with no notice and just throw a show on. So I got to get on out of here. I'm going to go ahead and play Bad Ace. This is Matchbox. We'll do a little station ID in a minute. And I want to thank you for listening to Truth on Tap. This has been your host, Kevin Kierstead. Peace.
You're listening to Truth on Tap with host Kevin Kierstead.
I've got an answer to the question that you asked me some years ago. Do you ever think you're gonna find your freedom on a matchbox floor? I'm telling you now, it's been lonely, it's been cold. I've been selling, I've been sold, but they never did break my love. It's been a long, long ride. And it was never so easy to be caught up in the rain with a pocket full of shame. No prescription for the pain, your connection's down again. Sooner or later your eyes go blind. You come back down for a friend to find, but they all left you behind. There ain't no profit for pride on the east side. No, 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 no. And the dogs that leave you for dead on the county line. And you're high